Our first English live show. We've got Nick Whalen on the program today. You know him from Roto World. You know him from 14 years of being a coach. We had the honor of having him on a similar episode 5 years ago, and I figured, hey, let's shoot Nick a little message, see if he wants to talk some fantasy football, some college scouting, some quarterbacks, and we had a lot of setbacks, if you will. I wouldn't call a wedding a setback, but maybe a tornado I would. So welcome to the show, Nick. It's an honor.
Yeah. Thanks for the delay. We've had some really crazy weather. I'm in Wisconsin, and yeah, we had multiple tornadoes very close by, including during my wedding. But we had clear skies tonight, so we can do this.
Yeah, it's a message from the heavens, right? It was finally meant to be, and I'm just so thankful that you're on the show. With this a completely different audience. This is us reaching Mexican people, people from Spain, from Colombia, from Venezuela, and I warned them. I said, hey, this is going to be a show in English. I can translate your questions in real time, but ultimately, just be ready because this is going to be more of a U.S. oriented sort of show. So. I guess we'd have to start with the quarterbacks this year. I know you're an avid Chicago Bears fan, so just general impressions of what Caleb Williams brings to the forefront in terms of creativity, production, maybe some questions as to why he wasn't able to go to college playoffs and maybe have stronger runs in that sense, and how that could translate to the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can see behind me here, I've got, my Bears stuff here. I've got a Walter Payton signed football here. So I've been a Bears fan my whole life. And honestly, it's pretty exciting because if you look at the quarterback Chicago has had in their tenure, they've never had one this talented, not first overall. I mean, Trubisky was second, but it was kind of deemed as a reach at the time, and Fields fell, and go back further. I mean, Cutler was talented, but he got dealt for a reason. Like, you go through and Caleb is, I don't like using the terms generational, but that's kind of what people have talked him to be. In terms of like a player comp, because I like player comps for describing a player, not talking about their career trajectory. He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers, a very accurate guy. He has this feeling in the pocket awareness to buy time a lot. And with that comes exciting plays, right? Big plays. And why it didn't come together completely at Oklahoma or USC, I think part of it was he was always trying to make the big play instead of taking maybe the safe play all the time. But also, he had some really, really bad defenses there in his offensive line. So I think when you can get a team around him like Chicago has built up around him, and I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a bit, it makes it very exciting. And it takes pressure, I think, off of a young quarterback, which is the purpose, and lets him just use his teammates to excel.
Is it fair to compare him in a sense, or to project a season similar to C.J. Stroud's with the Texans? Or is that just a once in a generation, once every 5 years sort of trajectory? Because I would argue the Bears have a better talent at this time, better receivers, potentially a better defensive line. Definitely not a better coaching. That would be my counter argument. But how could a Caleb Williams season compare perhaps to mid-season C.J. Stroud in his rookie year?
Yeah, I mean, you actually can go back to Justin Herbert had a great rookie year too, kind of similar. And one thing that's linked there is Keenan Allen, who'll be on both teams. But
that is true.
Yeah, but I've looked at in depth the weapons around Caleb Williams, and I compared it to every number one pick for the last 20, 30 years. And I think it's the best surrounding cast that there is. I mean, you even look at backups like Gerald Everett is one of the best backup tight ends in the NFL. They added in Swift, who's a good pass catching back, and they've added more to the O-line besides having arguably 3 number one wide receivers. It just creates such a safety net that I think having a 4,000 yard passing year, having a 25 touchdown passing year, I think isn't a pipe dream, of me being a Bears fan and hoping it. I think it's something that could be a reality, which is kind of the Stroud, trajectory. And I mean, the Bears are at, I think, 8.5 wins is the over under. And I think it's a clear over bet because they were at 7 last year. And lost 3 games that were in like the 92nd or higher percentile of, they should win throughout
Winnables,
the game.
right?
And when you add, you add Keenan Allen, you add Odunze, you add, Caleb, who should be better than Fields last year. And it looks like it should be a 4,000 yard, really good season for Caleb.
Right. I think it'd only be a matter of how many interceptions he would start throwing, either somewhere around the 5, 6, 7 range, or something a little bit higher towards the 13, 15 if he gets perhaps too aggressive. But I'm right with you there. Caleb Williams, and this is no surprise to anybody, the most talented quarterback in this class. I think the one that can be thrown into the fire week 1 and sort of survive quicker and better and more efficiently than perhaps some of his comrades in this quarterback season. And we'll go and talk about all of them for sure. But do you have any favorite wide receiver for fantasy purposes this year? Is it DJ Moore with the second-year experience on the same team, although it's a different quarterback? Is it Keenan Allen just because of the history, or Rome Odunze to take over as a rookie?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think I'm a little bit more different than others, despite DJ Moore being there. I favor Keenan Allen. I think because of that offense, Shane Waldron comes over from Seattle and coordinating that offense, the timing of it and being in the slot, I think that safety net of what Keenan Allen can be, and he's just such a great route runner. He should be a Hall of Famer. I think he's going to be the leader at minimum receptions. It could be yards as well. But I think he's going to be that guy right away. Not that DJ Moore's not going to do great things, but I think Caleb's going to lean on Keenan Allen this year.
All right, so we're going with good vibes for Caleb Williams. We're going with the over 9 wins. I'm right there with you. And we're going with Keenan Allen as the number 1 wide receiver. Now, I completely agree, and he's always on my fantasy teams for PPR purposes. I think he's going to be magnificent, and he's basically the best safety net a quarterback could ask for at any given time. A large part of the season, or the reason why Justin Herbert consolidated himself so quickly in the NFL is definitely Keenan Allen.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue Mike Williams a little bit, but he's always hurt. So let's just leave it at Keenan Allen and go on with our next quarterback. So Jayden Daniels, where do you stand on Jayden Daniels? I mean, he's got a deep pass, he's got mobility, a little bit slender. He'll take some big hits, and he's not much of a thrower in the middle of the field. But he's also got a good group. I think the offensive line is getting a little bit better. Not so sure about the coaching staff. Dan Quinn sounds like a consolation prize after not getting Ben Johnson from the Lions.
Mm-hmm.
You've still got Terry McLaurin. You've still got Luke McCaffrey, who's making noise as the slot receiver. Jahan Dotson on the red zone. I'm still a believer. Not a crazy believer, but just enough to keep him alive in dynasty leagues. What sort of season could we expect from Jayden Daniels? Is it fair to compare him to Lamar Jackson prototype? Or is he somewhere more along the Kyler Murray, maybe Mitch Trubisky as a runner sort of profile?
Yeah, I have a different comparison. So I guess just to start with, Jayden Daniels isn't my number 2 quarterback in this class, not for the NFL and not for fantasy either, which is going to surprise some people. And that doesn't mean I don't like Jayden Daniels, but as a Bears fan, we just saw Justin Fields, who struggled throwing over the middle of the field. He got sacked a lot despite being very athletic, and he threw a lot to the outside and was a good deep ball thrower. And when you look at Jayden Daniels, that's who he is.
Right.
And it's weird for me when you look at that prototype. And I mean, Justin Fields was more productive in college as well. I know Jayden had the Heisman, but he was in college for 5 years. I mean, you know, Brandon Ayuk is looking for a contract right now, and Jayden Daniels was throwing to him his freshman year. Like, he's been in there for a while.
Forever, yeah.
And, Fields transferred as well, but he had more productive, tenure over multiple years at Ohio State. And the NFL just said, nah, we don't want Justin Fields. We're not going to pay a lot in the trade capital, but we're supposed to believe that same type of guy is the 2nd overall pick and is going to have this huge ceiling. And I struggle a bit. The one thing that's interesting with Jayden Daniels is from the pocket, he's not bad. Going through progressions, different offenses and different concepts, he does well. And if it's not there, first read, second read, normally he takes off and he runs.
Right.
But if he tries to buy time, his eyes go down. They don't stay up and look for a big play like Caleb Williams, like Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, Josh Allen. So that's not good. It was almost like when he got pressured in the pocket, almost 50% of the time he was running. And that's not going to work in the NFL. And you talked about it. He's got this slender frame, tries to run over people. I mean, we saw Anthony Richardson, who's a much bigger man, get injured last year. And I have some really concerns about him. He's already an older prospect of holding up, if that's going to be his MO or his game in the NFL.
I think he's going to try it. I'm not so sure the Commanders will be happy about it after the first or the second injury. Hopefully not too serious, but yeah, I mean, I think he'd have to play over 200 pounds to just survive that style of gameplay. Because we have seen Kellen Murray survive. I think he's around that weight, slender or smaller. But I think he's much more elusive as well. I think he's better avoiding tackles than even Jayden Daniels. So I guess we'll see on that front. So he's not your number 2 quarterback. Let's see if this following prospect is. What about Drake Maye with the Patriots? With my Patriots? Because I'm just. So I mean, I'll just ask it straight up before we go into the quarterback. Did Belichick have to be fired, or was this an ego thing? Or was he done? Is he done? Or like, what's going on? Because he sounded there for a second or two as the next head coach for the Commanders, and ultimately, I think the name was just too big, and they didn't want any distractions if Belichick could call it such a thing.
Yeah, honestly, it's sad. I was a fan of Belichick, of Brady, of the whole thing, and some people, they won another one, and we need someone else to win. I loved it. I loved seeing the dynasty and seeing the whole thing happen. I got some coaching books behind me from Bill, also from Steve, his dad, who was a good coach back in the day in college. I honestly, part of it, I think, was time. I think it was time because sometimes your message kind of runs long with players, with an organization. It's tough for them to believe it. But also, I think maybe too much power. And in terms of personnel, some of the picks weren't hitting, and signing guys wasn't hitting. And I think they needed more of a mix.
That's fair. Yeah, and I do think the scouting system in the Patriots got old. Just never got updated in a way. We saw Wolf Jr. come from the Packers, play as or act as GM this year, and he said we're just going to rehaul the whole thing. It's going to help us better compare players across different positions. Where with Belichick, it was basically either I like him for my system or I don't. There was no sort of nuance, or that's at least what I got from a couple of reports he got to read. So, having said that, we've got Gerard Mayo, we've got Alex Van Pelt as an offensive coordinator. We've got Jacoby Brissett as a bridge quarterback. I like him more than consensus. I think he's perfectly functional. I think he's been useful in series, just a leader in every team he's been at. I think the Commanders look fairly well offensively with him towards the end of the year, when somehow I guess just got tired of getting captured behind that miserable O-line. So there's really no quick pressure, I'd say, for Drake Maye to play week 1, perform, get some wins. Expectations really for the Patriots are very low at this point. Gerard Mayo will obviously try to get as many wins as he can, but I would be hoping for at least half the season of just bench and rest and focus and reset. As I do think he's a panic and run sort of guy. Or he'll try to solve everything himself at times. He plays some hero ball, and that gets me a little bit concerned. But having said that, I do prefer the quarterback who's more aggressive and then try to reel him in versus the cowardly quarterback and then try to bring him out of his shell, right? So I guess my question really is, can we trust the Patriots to develop Drake Maye? That's really my question. Please talk me out of the ledge.
Well, I would say yes, because I'm a huge Drake Maye fan. During the middle of last year, to me, I had them 1A, 1B, him and Caleb Williams. I had him that high, and then he actually had probably his worst 2 games of his college career, the last 2 games. And actually, Caleb and Drake are very similar in that, Maye lost his offensive coordinator going into this year, and he lost Josh Downs. Caleb lost Jordan Addison. They both had pretty bad weapons, pretty bad O-lines, and they were just trying to make it on their own, versus Jayden Daniels, who had 2 first-round picks that we saw that was loaded. Right. And he had, actually, I think he has 2 first-round pick tackles that are going to be in next year's draft. So very similar in terms of how people look at them. If you can't just look at the numbers, you have to look at the context. But I'm a big Maye fan because he's big. He's actually a really good runner. People don't think of that. He's kind of the Josh Allen type, where he's going to dish out some punishment and not care about his body and throw the ball with his left hand and do whatever he can to make a play. He does play a lot of hero ball. That leads to some turnovers. But my description of him is he's a big game hunter. Okay, I don't know if people hunt, that watch this live stream, but going out there like, okay, hey, I'm just gonna take the first, animal I see or deer that I see. He's trying to get the biggest one, the
Right.
best one, and that's the big play down the field, which puts safeties further back, right? Makes maybe defenses maybe less aggressive because like, man, this guy's going to make a big play. So, I'm a big fan. I think that there's a lot of talent in his game, touch, arm strength, agility, athleticism. I think there's a lot more to his game than any other prospect besides Caleb Williams in this class. As a Patriots fan, I'm telling you right now, I would be so excited with Drake Maye.
Okay, good.
I
I'm excited about it. I'm just worried about the coaching staff because I really
Yeah.
don't know what to expect. That's really it.
I agree with you though. Jacoby Brissett, I think Jacoby Brissett and Gardner Minshew are basically the new Ryan Fitzpatricks in the NFL. Like they're underrated and they're good everywhere they go. They succeed. So you don't have to push him in there right away to start. But I think that Drake Maye can become the Josh Allen where he's going to succeed no matter who the offensive coordinator is. You just got to give him a little time.
Okay, I love everything you said. That talks me out of the ledge. We're still going to win only 5 games this season, so who cares? But
Yep.
it's not really about that. It's trying to find a quarterback in this godforsaken division that got so complicated out of nowhere. No? Right when Tom Brady was leaving the division, everybody just started exploding. It's like Aaron Rodgers and Mike McDaniel, and then Josh Allen trying to get Super Bowls, and then you got the silly little Patriots with Mac Jones, who's running for his life, throwing interceptions with his left hand for pick sixes and stuff. It
was bad.
It was so bad. It was just I don't think I've seen a quarterback break down as quickly and as badly as Mac Jones from the season to the other one.
It's confidence, and I saw it with Justin Fields with Chicago. Like once you lose your confidence, it's you question that your teammates are going to block you. They're going to get open on routes. The timing's going to be there. The coaching staff, like, is that a good play? You're second guessing your skills, and you hate to see that for a young player, especially at quarterback, which is such a heady position. But I saw it with Mac, and I saw it with Justin Fields too.
That's fair. You see it with kickers all the time. You see it with cornerbacks as well. If one year they're geniuses, and the next year they're out of the league. Sadly, so. Right, so Drake Maye is your quarterback number 2 in this class, tied with Caleb Williams. It's just a matter of preference, style. If you want the big, powerful pocket passer with some mobility versus the ultra creative Aaron Rodgers-like quarterback, right? So how do they compare creatively, Drake Maye and Caleb Williams? I mean,
as the year, I had him at 1A, 1B mid-year last year during the college season, and then Caleb, I think, took a step. But in terms of creativity, I think Caleb is a lot more in terms of abstract, and I think of Drake Maye as more like power tools. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna like Steve McNair, like he's gonna run. He's got power. He's got a cannon arm. Brett Favre. You know what I mean? Like, and I know people think of. I say these names not like he's gonna have a Hall of Fame career, but just that he's got the arm and the aggressive mindset that he's gonna make a play. And sometimes when you throw on time, and you throw with confidence, you're gonna make more plays. And then sometimes you're gonna make some really bad plays. Right. So you just have to live with that.
And he's got the arm to survive that most of the time. Hopefully, as long as he recognizes cover 2 and the whatever adjustments we get from the defensive coordinators. I am very intrigued to hear your thoughts on this next quarterback. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. Let's talk about Michael Penix Jr., Washington. Is it fair? Let's just say it this way: can a team overspend at the quarterback position? Is there such a thing as spending too many resources trying to find a franchise quarterback? Because that really seems to be how this argument in the Falcons boils down. You either believe they can throw anything and everything at the quarterback position, cost be damned, or they assigned resources inefficiently, and Kirk Cousins won't have the best roster possible to try to take him to a potential Super Bowl opportunity. Where do you stand on those two fronts?
To me, I've thought about this a lot. A lot of people have talked about this pick. I think it comes down to the 2025 quarterback class, because I think this Kirk Cousins deal was always going to be about a 2-year thing. I mean, he's getting older. Not every quarterback is going to be Tom Brady, y'all, making it to 42, 43, whatever. And it was a big injury he just went through. The Achilles is a big thing. Some guys have not come back from that. Look at Cam Akers. Look at J.K. Dobbins. I know that's a different position, but the explosiveness, pushing off as a quarterback, you need that. And so I always thought it was a 2-year type of thing anyway. But next year's class at quarterback is so bad that I think Atlanta was like, we know we can't get the guy to take over for him next year, so we might as well get him this year. I think they overspent, but I do like Michael Penix. He's my quarterback 6. Okay.
Okay, but that's pretty deep.
Or hold on. 5. I'm
5,
sorry.
6.
Hold on. Where are we at here?
It's a bunch of quarterbacks.
6. He's 6. For me.
So does that mean Spencer Rattler is above him?
Now, Bo Nix. So if we go through the
Okay.
top 3, JJ McCarthy, Bo Nix, and then I had Penix at 6.
Okay.
But I still like him. That's the thing. I think Michael Penix is built as the older NFL. If it was the Drew Brees, Dan Marino, even the Kirk Cousins, like that guy that's not mobile, that sits in the back of the pocket, is the old NFL. You need a guy now that can be creative, especially with cover 2 defenses, right? Because that's the whole thing, is the too high, could be cover 4, cover 2. You need a guy that can buy a little time to find those windows, to find guys in those scramble drills, because there's more zones underneath. And Penix, despite being athletic and running a good 40 time, never ran. And he's got a ton of leg injuries.
Right.
And to me, that part didn't make sense. I thought they could have traded down and got him, or tried a different way. But in terms of getting a quarterback for 2026, which I think is what they're doing, I get that part of it, because next year's class is bad.
All right. We are fairly warned. I did like Penix coming out of college. I don't see as much college football during the NFL season. There's not enough time in my life to try to do so. I was fairly impressed with that semifinal, for a college semifinal. He played very well. The final, well, I don't think anybody did that well against Michigan, but it's understandable. So I was high on him before looking at any of the other prospects, really. I do consider him better than Bo Nix, talent-wise at least, whatever talent can be defined as, or ceiling-wise perhaps is the proper term. I do think he has better physical tools, but that said, the injury history just really, really scares me. So it's 2 shoulder injuries and then 2 knee injuries, season enders. So he lost mobility. He used to be that athlete that you were looking for, not anymore.
The one thing that I struggle with is, you saw in that Michigan game, he struggled against simulated pressures, and that's a lot of what the NFL is in terms of, you saw with Minnesota last year, and that I think that's kind of the newer age, and you have to either make those quick decisions and seeing where guys are dropping off, or have the mobility to adjust. If he didn't have the mental part of it, I struggle. He's going to freeze and get hit a lot and sacked a lot and make bad decisions.
Do you think Kirk Cousins is going to mentor him, or not that much?
I think so.
They seem nice guys, right? I think they can hit it off.
I think Kirk's a pro's pro. I think he gets it, and plus he's making all the money, so it's not like he's not. That's guaranteed. He's not going to lose out.
That is fair. I mean, it can become an ego thing, but I don't think Kirk's big on the ego front. He's weird, but I don't think he's ego driven.
No,
the same way other quarterbacks are. Sending my best to Aaron Rodgers. Anyways, let's see. Are you an Aaron Rodgers fan, just as a person, or not really?
Well, I'm a Bears fan, so I've
with that as a person. Yeah, that's why I'm.
He's ruined my life, basically.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, you hate him. It's like the NFL, AFC is with Tom Brady. So yeah, you just have to hate him, right? That's fair.
I mean, I respect him. He's a great player. I mean, it's the accuracy that he has from different platforms has just been unreal in his career.
I think he was or is the most talented quarterback in history before we saw Patrick Mahomes. That was basically my stand on.
Yeah, he's up there
on Aaron Rodgers. JJ McCarthy. So let's go to the other divisional rival for the Chicago Bears. Fairly criticized, I'd say, for lack of throwing volume. Not much needed from him in the Michigan offense. They were still national champions. Undefeated, if I remember correctly. Jim Harbaugh moving on to the Chargers, saying JJ McCarthy was the best quarterback in this class. He was just probably trying to get JJ McCarthy to throw a little bit earlier and see if he could lure some of those teams to try to sneak in a pick there for Joel. I think it worked. General impressions on him. I like him. I think he's fairly athletic. He seems very intelligent. some issues on the red zone, but not. I don't think it's anything that shouldn't be solvable and with a year or two experience, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I like him as a player. Again, he's my quarterback 4. It's just small sample sizes. When you have small sample sizes, it gets riskier and riskier. I mean, he's a guy that he has mobility. He's got toughness. You see him go through some reads. He struggles a little bit throwing left and down the field.
Oh no, not the. Is that like Mitchell Trubisky throwing left?
A little bit. There's a little mechanical thing there, so we'll see if he corrects some of that. But here's the one thing I think that's interesting, and as much as we like to scout and do this, the NFL gets paid. This is what pays their family and their careers and their futures. And if we look through, right, there were 4 NFL teams that decided to take a different quarterback instead of JJ McCarthy. Even in there, the Giants, I don't think have an answer at quarterback. They decided to take a receiver instead of McCarthy. The Titans took an offensive lineman and stuck with Will Levis, which people might love him. They might not. He had a great first game. The rest of it didn't go so hot, and they decided to go offensive lineman instead of McCarthy. The Jets at 10, right? That would make sense to get the predecessor. I mean, or the successor to Rodgers, not Atlanta. Now, I understand they wanted to build around him for however long you have Rodgers, 1 year, 2 years, whatever, but they still didn't do it either. Denver didn't trade up ahead to get him, and the Raiders didn't trade up to get him. So to me, all of that, we heard the noise, right? 3 first-round picks. Everyone wants McCarthy, and none of it happened. So in my mind, whatever we thought McCarthy was, I think we need to temper it down a little bit, because I don't think that the NFL, I mean, Minnesota didn't even spend multiple ones to get him. They're like, we'll just wait and see if he falls to us. I don't think we should think high expectations for him. I think a Jared Goff-like ceiling is about where he could be.
Okay, I think he's a little bit more mobile than Jared Goff. Not much more mobile, or maybe just younger, and he'll have to escape from the pocket. More often. Yeah,
more mobile. I'm just saying, like, he doesn't have like this huge ceiling to have huge numbers or carry an offense. I think you have to really surround him to do well.
Right, you got the motor, and you got people who are the back part of the car, right? So he's not a motor. That's basically it. Mm-hmm. He goes to a great offense. He has a great offensive coordinator. I think they did a great job offensively, rotating quarterbacks and trying to make chicken soup out of this very, very difficult situations. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, he's okay. Like, I think he's an okay quarterback. I think he'll have a long career. He'll be liked by coaches, but he doesn't strike me as a quarterback that will take you to the promised land. I just hope I hope to be wrong about that, but I think maybe quarterback 10 to quarterback 15 or 16 in the league is where he levels off.
Yep. And that's a tough division now too. I mean, you got Caleb and the Bears, and they're rising. Green Bay last year went on a run. Detroit is one of the best teams in the NFL, and then you got Minnesota. Like, it's going to be tough to win games in division for sure.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest division after the AFC North.
Yep.
Maybe the NFC West, but I don't think the Cardinals are quite there yet.
No.
And who knows about the Seahawks? They're the biggest enigma for me.
I know. Lost all their coaches.
Yeah. It's just we'll talk about them. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Geno Smith if you expect anything from him. But
sure.
Bo Nix, Denver Broncos, the savior, or so I hear. Like, this is literally Sean Payton fighting for his NFL life after whatever happened with Russell Wilson. I have a crazy theory. I don't know if I'll just say it out loud, see if you agree or not. Remember that one game we saw from Marvin Mims where he just hit it off with Russell Wilson early in the season, like week 1, week 2? After that, we never saw Marvin Mims. Never again. Would that have been Sean Payton trying to sabotage his quarterback? Is that too crazy to think after everything we've heard about Sean Payton? Like, just
I feel like it is, but because I mean, there's a lot that happens behind the scenes we don't know about. But it is weird that they try to get out of it. I mean, to me, I think the biggest issue with Russell Wilson, and interesting that Pittsburgh wanted him, is with these short quarterbacks, Kyler Murray, him, etc. They can't see over the line, so they don't utilize the middle of the field. And Sean Payton's offense, despite with Drew Brees found windows, and his is all timing based. Russ isn't. Russ is kind of buying time, throwing down the field and throwing outside. And that's not what Arthur Smith's offense is in Pittsburgh.
Oh, no way.
And Justin Fields, we just talked about this. Justin Fields doesn't operate over the middle either. So it's going to be interesting to see how this play action offense works. But I think that he needed someone to fit his offense. Bo Nix is more mobile at this point in his career than Russell Wilson is. He's started more games than anyone else in college football history. He doesn't turn the ball over. He doesn't get sacked. And honestly, in NFL right now, limiting those negative plays wins you games. And I like Nix more than Penix. I think they're very close. I don't think he's going to be amazing, but I don't think he's terrible. I think he's really, really gotten talked down a lot. And I think he could be just a decent, like you said, maybe, QB 16 to QB 20, maybe like a Carr, right? Like a Derek Carr like career. Right. And that's not bad in the NFL.
A more likable Derek Carr, hopefully.
Yeah.
Doesn't get talked down by his offensive lineman. That
was bad last year.
Well, I mean, they just lost control of that locker room. It's I can't believe they still have the same head coach as last year. It's just
I can't believe it either.
Okay, good. We agree then. Yeah, it's insane. But yeah, we like Bo Nix. He's 25 years old, if I recall correctly. Mm-hmm. Long storied career. Do the short passes concern you at all? There's a lot of like checkdowns and dump offs. I know Sean Payton talked about eliminating those from the analysis. He's just going with the deep balls, deeper passes, and he still came out well on those. But I mean, that's his word. I have no way of verifying that. So,
you know, it's interesting. That was the same gripes that people had against Justin Herbert coming out of Oregon too. Now again, Bo Nix was also at Auburn and didn't look great. And honestly, I didn't like Bo Nix, but his film at Oregon opened my eyes. I'm like, I can see where he can find a role and he can be successful. And again, like we're talking about all these guys, you have to put them in a system and surround them to make them successful. And some will succeed and some won't. You talked about Mac Jones, right? There's a system that can make Mac Jones work, and they just didn't put it together for him. So it's going to be dependent on Sean Payton. Now, again, I think we have a lot of faith in Sean Payton, so I think that might be a little bit of this too. But I have hope for Bo Nix.
Okay, that's fairly positive, and I do share those positive impressions. And ultimately, this was the only way they were going to get a quarterback. I mean, it was this or Jarrett Stidham, so you really can't fault the Broncos for this. They did tell us they didn't care much for J.J. McCarthy, and I'd argue they didn't care much for Michael Penix either. They didn't try to trade up aggressively,
right?
All the way up. Going back to the Giants, though, I would argue the Giants didn't go for a quarterback because otherwise the GM and head coach would have been fired after giving that extension to Daniel Jones. They're just trying to cover their heights and just get a wide receiver and try to make something work with the miserable situation they have.
It's interesting because, I mean, I think it's a bad contract. But also, I mean, 2 years ago, their head coach, Brian Daboll, was coach of the year. Right. You know, and now he looks like he's a guy that could lose his job. I mean, it's.
Oh, he was screaming out the quarterback on the sidelines before he got injured, so he gave up. I think this is a GM decision, really.
Yeah, it's just such a mess. I mean, to me, I thought they should have reset because if you reset and you get help at the quarterback position, I think you save your job. But I mean, what's the expectation? Even with Jones and a new receiver, 6 wins?
6 wins, yeah. 7 is a marvelous season for them. I love the defensive line. The defense is on the uprise. O-line's okay. I mean,
Darren Waller might retire.
He's gone. I don't even care at this point. It's like, just make it official. If you're thinking about retirement, you're done. So let's just end that story right there. And Malik Neighbors just looks pissed off, and he hasn't played a single snap. I don't know. It's just weird vibes we're getting from the New York Giants. Did we miss any quarterback? I don't think we did.
No, not anyone's relevant. I mean, Rattler fell further than we thought, but I mean, he's shorter. He's got really good arm talent, but he just has too many turnovers.
Right. Discount Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's actually a good call.
Okay. Jordan Travis, any promise with the Jets just as a developmental quarterback?
I like Jordan Travis a lot. I mean, I would think of him as like a poor version of Bryce Young. Won a lot of games, did well at Florida State. He just doesn't have a big time arm, and he's a small guy. But I mean, if you need a spot starter or someone gets hurt for part of a year, I think he could do decent.
All right, excellent. So we've talked about Chicago Bears. We've talked about the quarterbacks. Let's talk about the Miami Dolphins running back group. We've got Raheem Mostert. He's 32 years old. Basically sets a personal record for touchdowns, rushing touchdowns. We have Devon Achane, who just explodes out of the gates, gets hurt. And we see the Dolphins, who lost a bunch of talent on offense, a bunch of talent on defense. They trade up and they go for a running back. They just couldn't help themselves, right? So if I recall correctly, they get Jalen Wright, speedster, powerful, probably better health than Devon Achane coming out of college. What can we expect from this backfield? We know the production we can get out of it, but who's
Right.
actually going to produce it for how long?
Yeah, no, that's a great debate. I mean, in terms of fantasy, I mean, to me, I think Achane is going to have the most touches total. Last year was like the first year was ever like healthy for most of the
Right.
year. I think he's probably going to get injured, especially I mean age too. With him, running backs just don't last. But I think you look at their body types, right? They're both smaller. Jalen Wright's actually bigger. He's about 6 foot, probably 215. I think he's going to be the short yardage guy, which in fantasy is not bad in a good offense. If you get some goal line touches, you steal some touchdowns there, and you get mixed into the backfield. So to me, I think that he's a good sleeper pick down the way, especially in Dynasty. In redraft, they would have to be really late, but he's a guy on a good offense that could get some touchdowns. And again, with two guys that get dinged up, all you need is an opportunity, and he could have some good games for you.
We didn't see that many dump off passes to tight ends. We did see a bunch of them from the Dolphins, from Tua to running backs. How does Jalen Wright perform as a receiver?
Yeah, he's not bad. I don't think that it's going to be a great part of his game, but I don't think it's bad. I just don't. I would lean more of Achane there if I was throwing to a back.
So functional. That's
Yeah.
basically it. Okay, functional sounds good. What about the Raiders? So how's that offense shaping up? Because they took. I think they actually panicked. They lost all the quarterbacks they were trying to hopefully get. I like Gardner Minshew. You mentioned him. I've stashed him in all my Superflex Dynasty leagues for 2 or 3 years now. It's finally paying off. 2 years, $25 million. You got Aiden O'Connell, who's neither here nor there. Developmental. Some promise, not too much promise, but just enough to maybe give him a chance. We've seen peers talk him up and just say, hey, he's going to have a chance. We're going to give him everything we've got, and he's got to perform. But they've got a bunch of receivers. I like Samir White as a running back. I think the 2 tight end sense could be absolutely spectacular. It's a shame for Michael Mayer's dynasty value, but ultimately it is what it is. I like him second for the division, but what can we expect from this offense?
You like him second in the division, huh?
I think so. I'm not buying. I mean, you can probably tell I'm not buying Sean Payton year one with Bo Nix. I'm hoping for good numbers. But that wide receiver group it's everywhere. I don't know exactly. Like Cortland Sutton as a 1 is he's like an okay 2 for me. I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, but the Chargers is what I would have as 2.
Oof. I'm thinking 2 years for the Jim Harbaugh developmental. Maybe I'm discounting him too much on defense. That really might be it, because they're going to do offensive line. They're going to have a bunch of running.
Yep.
Greg Roman, we know it's going to be like a 65-70 run pass split.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I am discounting Justin Herbert too much. I think they lost too much talent, but we'll see. I mean, ultimately, the Raiders might have the worst quarterback situation out of the 4, and I might be overplaying them.
So, I mean, like when you look at what they've kind of constructed there, they added Jackson Powers Johnson as well, who's a good old lineman and the interior, whether he plays guard or center. They have a solid O line. You bring in Brock Bowers, who I love, by the way. Love Brock Bowers. I had him as probably the 3rd best playmaker in this whole draft. And
over who? Over which wide receiver?
Over the Bears Odunze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's not a slight to Odunze. I just love Brock Bowers. I mean, if you watch Georgia football, he carried the best team in the nation over the last probably 3 years. I mean, as a true freshman, he had double-digit touchdowns, and that was on a team that had Adonai Mitchell. And I mean, you go through the list of all these receivers that are in the NFL right now, and it's like, okay, if you're doing that at 18 in the SEC, you got to be a stud.
You're a baller.
And so, who? So I mean, in terms of fantasy, like Bowers could be a low end, probably tight end 1. But you think of like what the Raiders are trying to do. They're going to have, you said, 2 tight end sets. Adams is still going to be a wide receiver 1. He's a stud. He's a great route runner, separates. Minshew isn't going to put up crazy good numbers. That's not what he is. He had 15 touchdown passes last year, but he peppered Michael Pittman a ton. So Adams could still get 100 receptions. You mentioned Zamir White. He had some games at the end of the year. I understand. But Zamir White hasn't run for 860 yards in a season since high school. And that would have been his senior year of high school. He's torn his ACL twice.
Yeah.
And committees at Georgia, fell in the draft. And again, not that I don't like the guy, but for counting on a guy in fantasy, I know there's not a lot of competition there, but it's tough to bet on a guy that hasn't done it in 6 years.
Yeah,
At
that's
running
fair.
back.
And he had a big injury, lower leg injury as well. He has a nice nickname. I mean, they call him Zeus, so
Yeah, I mean,
He
he was
works
number
with
one
that.
running back recruit. I mean, he'd be a low, he'd be a
RB2.
low sleeper for me.
RB3. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And then ultimately, it is Gardner Minshew, and so I mean, how many players can be relevant fantasy wise in that offense?
Yep.
I mean, it's a bunch of playmakers, but I don't know if they have the engine or the gasoline to ignite it and make it work. Maybe next year, but then again, there's no rookie quarterbacks next year, so
Right? Who's gonna be the quarterback?
it's probably going to be Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's actually talk about the Dallas Cowboys. What the hell's going on over there? Is there a plan with the Dallas Cowboys? And if so, which is it? Because I can't find it. I'm not saying there's no plan. I can't understand it. You had to extend Dak Prescott to have some money so you could spend on free agency, so you wouldn't have CeeDee Lamb out of OTAs, about to miss a mandatory minicamp. So
Right.
Micah Parsons and his family could be quiet on social media for a little while. And so you could go compete and try to beat the Packers in conference. I don't know. It just ended so abruptly. I don't think Jerry Jones processed it well at all. And I don't know. I think he's still shell-shocked.
I think people are putting way too much weight in general on that Packers Dallas playoff game, because I mean, Dallas has been one of the best teams, a top 5 NFL team, I'll say, over the last 3 years. Probably, if you had to average it out in terms of points, how they did, blah, blah, blah. And the playoffs just haven't gone well. But the playoffs don't go well for every team. Buffalo, it doesn't go well, but people don't say they're overrated. But Dallas, it's like, oh, they suck.
Well, I mean, it's 33 years of frustration. So, but to be fair, Buffalo probably has the same period or more. So
That's what I'm saying.
Good comparison. I like it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
And and you look
It's
at
not America's team, so maybe that's it.
right. I think that's part of it, is people kind of like them losing.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you look at last year, they led the NFL in points. They were 5th in yards offensively, 4th in points the year before, 11th in yards, 21, 1st in points, 1st in yards. I mean, they're going to sign Dak Prescott. They're going to sign CeeDee Lamb. In my mind, I think they're just behind the 8 ball when they should be in front of it. Because if you're in front of the extensions, you actually save money. But at this point, they
always do it late. Jerry Jones always comes in late, and he overpays. He loves keeping his own players, but he always comes in late. We saw it last time with previous extension Dak Prescott got, and that cost him the no tag clause and then the can veto any trade clause, which is making him even more expensive and harder to sign this time around. So
right. I mean, I think it's a mistake. I agree with you, but I mean, there's no way they're gonna. I mean, what are they gonna do? They have to sign them. There are retooling.
Maybe. Yes, maybe.
You think
There
what?
are positive Trey Lance. There are positive reports. I mean, I haven't seen him play, but I'm spitballing here.
No, I know he's there. I mean, I scouted him.
You say he's there. They say he's there. Yeah.
I'm not a Trey Lance fan, so I mean, they're retooling the O-line a bit. They brought in Tyler Guyton. He's gonna be a new left tackle. They have a new center. Tyler Smith has done very well at left guard in terms of a young prospect. Zach Martin won't be there forever, so they're slowly retooling from what they had, with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin being these young all pros forever. Now they're not going to be there. They need a wide receiver too. Jake Ferguson to be there for 2 more years. They need, whether it's Jalen Tolbert to step up, because Brandon Cooks won't. This is last year there, so there's some holes, but it's kind of like it's similar to Miami, similar to Buffalo, where they're kind of having to do a rebuild on the fly a little bit on that offense, and we'll see how it goes. But Dak was. For a portion, he was like MVP last year.
Right, second to the MVP. That's my defense for him. And then everybody kind of argues, saying, "Well, they lost in the playoffs."
Right.
To which I replied, the entire team did. Like Dak Prescott was probably number 15 or 16 in that season. I don't think he was really the end all be all of why they can't go to the next level.
Like people forget in that game too. I mean, they were so hurt at linebacker. They had like a 220-pound guy playing linebacker, and Green Bay just ran on him, and then play action was wide open. So like, there's some weird, I think, personnel things that they did. And Dan Quinn being gone, I don't think is a terrible thing for that.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, this was not the year for Dan Quinn to be a head coach again. Not after that end of the season.
Yep.
Like I hear the hype on the start of the season, but there's a reason why Dallas just gave up on him. To be fair. So that's basically it in terms of the script and the questions I had planned for you. I'd like to take some of the questions that people have
Yeah.
sent towards the show. So everybody, this is Rudy Jacinto. This is Nick Whalen. We're talking about fantasy and dynasty football, scouting. Send us your questions. Lancen sus preguntas in Spanish or en español o en inglés, in Spanish or English. I'll be translating them in real time, and let's see what Nick has to say for the next 10 or 15 minutes, or hopefully a little bit. Sure. Take.
Let's see how it goes.
Let's see. Jorge says the Bears really made sure to have the best environment they could build for Caleb Williams. We talked a little bit about that. So overall predictions for Caleb Williams, just recapping that, maybe 4,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 to 12 interceptions.
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, on those numbers, I think over on yards, 25 is kind of tough to just say he'll go higher than that. But it's tough with those receivers. I mean, plus you have Cole Kmet, plus you have Swift, plus you have Everett. Like, it's really set up well. And the other thing too that Chicago did that people don't realize is their center position has been the worst in the NFL over the last 3 years. And they brought in 2 different guys who have experience starting that have been better than what they've had. So even that interior pressure, won't be there for him. So I really like that they're insulating and they're really learning from fumbling with Justin Fields and all these other guys. They want to surround the young quarterback instead of the defense to make them succeed and to be successful. So it's pretty exciting in Chicago right now.
Oh, absolutely. Best quarterback you guys have had since forever. And I'm very pleased to say that we're getting our first rain of the year in Guadalajara. See, I told you this was going to be a great day. It's finally raining in Guadalajara. We talk about the rains of May in Mexico, but we almost didn't get them this year.
Well, it's because of me, right? All the bad weather we've been having.
Thank you.
We're giving it to you, man.
You did that rain dance thingy, and it's working out. So I was praying for you guys to not get hit hard by the tornado. You gave us rain, so this is coming out really well.
Yeah, this is a great trade.
That is very much appreciated. Cesar Rosas with a Raiders logo asks about his team. How do we see him next season? Maybe you're over-under for the Raiders next year. I might be too high on them. I do trust the pieces they have. I did like the coaching change. I might be too low on the Chargers. I think I'm just right on point with the Broncos, but to be determined.
I would have the Raiders battling with the Chargers for the second best team. I like the attitude that they had of being physical, of taking on Antonio Pierce, right, and being excited because sometimes those interims come in and it just is a disaster. It's like
holders,
successful. It's like, what are we doing here? But they believed him and they did well. But like I said, getting in Jackson Powers Johnson, getting in Brock Bowers, like you saw, they're going to be a powerful team. They're going to be more ball control in terms of play action, short passes with Brock Bowers and Adams. There's not going to be a lot of deep shots. But I do like that. And plus, how do you not like Max Crosby? I'm unsure on Tyree Wilson. Opposite him, Tyree Wilson I thought was a little bit of a reach, but if he can develop, you have some of the longest edges in the NFL. Those 2 guys are super long. They cover about half the field. So there are some things to be excited about with the Raiders for sure. It's just going to see if they can't get behind in games. They have to be up,
correct.
Or they have to be close right away, and then they can be okay this year.
No catch-up mode for the Raiders, that's for sure. They also got Christian Wilkins, so that defensive line could all of a sudden be a solution instead of a problem. So I'm excited for them. This might not be the year, but I'm excited for the Raiders. They've been irrelevant for a little while there, and the post-Derek Carr era is sort of shaping up. We'll see. Hi, Rudy and Nick. I think the Packers are still going to own the Bears. Just kidding. We're not. It's a Green Bay logo, so you know where he's coming from.
I struggle a little bit with Green Bay. I mean, I live in Wisconsin.
My condolences.
Because I mean, you look at that run they had last year. I mean, they beat up on some pretty bad teams, and they had some solid wins. I mean, the Dallas one was good. They beat Kansas City like week 10, but they also lost to the Giants when DeVito was the quarterback, and they beat Carolina by 3. I don't know who they are. I think they're probably a mix of between. I don't think they're probably going to be a top 4 team in the NFC, which I think some people have them as. And I don't have them as middling. I think they're probably borderline playoff team, either wild card or 8 or 9 wins is about where I have them.
Okay. I lean more towards the 9 just because I really like what we saw from Jordan Love. I think they were losing a couple of games there where it really wasn't up to the quarterback. I recall that. I think it was the Packers-Broncos game, week 6 or 7. They should have won that one. I think the kicker botched it, and then the Broncos came back. So I don't know. There were a couple of iffy losses towards the start of the year. But they played really well against the Lions and the Bears. Obviously against the Cowboys, I think they should have beaten the 49ers in the playoffs, but inexperience just kicked in and they couldn't quite close it off. So yeah, I mean, 9 to 10 wins. Well, I think most people would have him at 10, but I hear you on the 8. I can see why. I don't trust that run defense quite yet.
Right. No, it'll be interesting. I mean, because that offensive line got worse too, despite the first round pick. And for a young quarterback and a young offense. The other thing interesting is this. And I'd like to hear your thought on this. Is when you look at the best NFL offenses in the NFL for the past, I don't know, while, best quarterbacks, whatever, they always have an elite player. And you look at Green Bay, and they just have like a bunch of young guys. And people are like, "Well, it worked last year." I mean, they were like 10th, like they were good, but they weren't elite. And a lot of those guys, in my opinion, they're not ceiling guys. They're floor guys. Like Jayden Reed is a floor guy. You know, Christian Kirk, like, you know, Watson, maybe he gets hurt a lot. You know, the tight ends are floor guys. You know, they got rid of Aaron Jones, who I think was better than Josh Jacobs. You know, like I just don't see, you know, there's no Tyreek. There's no Rome Odunze. There's no like guy. I don't think that's going to take.
Right. I was asking for Mike Evans. I really wanted Mike Evans in this offense, and then you can displace everybody, like notch down, make their challenges or defenders a little bit easier, and then try to open up the offense that way. I'm with you with the Aaron Jones over Josh Jacobs. I think the Packers went for healthier and younger. Jacobs hasn't been exactly the healthiest running back in the last couple of years. I am very high on Luke Musgrave. And, I do like Christian Watson as his speedster a lot. He says he's balancing his musculature. He was like 20% off, like his right side was 20% thicker than the left side, and that was causing all sort of imbalances.
I've heard that doesn't fix it, though. That's what I've heard. I don't know. We'll see.
I have no idea. He says he's fixing it, that it's only at 10% now, that he's trying to go down to 6. I don't even know how that works. I just brought it up in a live show 2 days ago, but might be very modern science. I'm just not privy to quite yet.
I like Tucker Kraft too. You know, look for a sleeper. So
okay. Well, I mean, that's 7, 8 receivers maybe for the Packers that could be relevant. It's Christian Watson, it's Jayden Reed, it's Romeo Doubs, Dontavius Wicks, and even Bo Melton had his moments. And then you had 2 tight ends. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just Jordan Love, and everybody has to assume the Packers are not going to produce, right? Just take the quarterback.
That's probably the best bet, honestly.
Is Kyle Pitts a player we should pay attention to in fantasy? Is Drake London going to be a shining light in our fantasy teams now? Is Kyle Pitts going to be relevant again after a 1,000-yard season as a rookie?
So this is Jorge, right?
This is Jorge, yes.
Yeah, I love Kyle Pitts this year, and let me tell you why. Because everyone's been burned by him, right? And then they're like, "Oh, I'm not taking Kyle Pitts again." That makes him a value, and that's what you chase in this game of trying to get, you know, a little bit of edges here and there. Kyle Pitts is 1,000-yard rookie tight end, which has been done twice in NFL history. He has the best quarterback he's ever had by a mile, and he was injured last year. People forgot that. Like he was, it was MCL and PCL he was recovering from, and he got overthrown a bunch. There were so many plays that were left on the field. So I think he's a fantastic play in fantasy this year, and I like Drake London too. So I think they can have 2 guys that can be successful. Darnell Mooney's there, but I think he can take more top off the defense and take attention away so those guys can eat and do well.
Right. It's more the MVS role or the I was going to say the Sean Jackson role, but no, he's not really that type of player.
Oh,
he doesn't have that type of efficiency. Not even close.
No.
What happened to Darnell Mooney? I mean, he had a 1,000-yard season 2 years ago, and then Justin Fields sort of found himself towards the second half of the season, but I don't think Mooney was a big part of that. Maybe was it just DJ Moore soaking all the targets?
I think confidence. I think he got a little. He wasn't happy with his role, but he dropped a lot of passes. I mean, talking of losing some games, he dropped a pass in the end zone that would have won the game for them last year. It's tough to come back from that sometimes mentally, you know.
Right. Greetings to Safe Flowers. Says he hasn't overcome his mistake with the against the Chiefs in that second half of the AFC Conference Finals. Luis asks, is it fair to compare Caleb Williams to Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, even though he hasn't played a snap in the NFL? I mean, I just say stylistically, sure. Why not? You got to compare him to somebody. And as you said, you're not saying that's going to be his career arc in the NFL. You're just saying this is how he compares. This is how he plays. He emulates the style of gameplay versus these two guys. Mahomes is more of a baseball sort of guy, the crazy angles, off platforms and stuff. Aaron Rodgers is creative, but I think more within the constructs of what we've seen in NFL offenses, and I think that's what Caleb Williams really brings to the table.
Yeah, no, you hit it. I mean, and part of it too is I watch so much film, and I assume you do too, but like so much film of them that we use the comparisons because we want to describe it to you in a way that you've seen before. So, okay, they're kind of a little this, kind of a little of that. It's the same thing with anything. Like, hey, how would you describe, this candy? Well, it's a little bit of Skittles. It's a little bit of, this. It's like, okay, it's not that it is Skittles. It just gives you an idea of the flavor.
They actually did that with not the Skittles, the comparisons. When I started scouting, that was back in 2017. My best and first hit Patrick Mahomes, and I compared him to Brett Favre. And I did get that feedback from people. It's like, I mean, how can you compare him to Brett Favre? Stylistically, I mean, they're basically Patrick Mahomes is basically Brett Favre without the interceptions. So, I mean, it doesn't mean it happens. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Sometimes the comparison is just spot on, and it's not crazy to say, hey, he might reach Aaron Rodgers levels in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, if he's considered generational, when you think of the past 20 years, I mean, that's Andrew Luck and Trevor Lawrence, Peyton Manning, like that level of guy. I mean, there really is a high ceiling, and putting him in those two guys category, it does make sense. Even from
it is reasonable. Yeah, it's not Bears fandom. I'm with you right there.
Yeah.
So. Vouching for that. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting fantasy football? Jose Luis, I think, is going to play his first fantasy league this year.
Yeah. No, I have a lot of advice. Well, one is start small, okay? And because there's so many different formats and there's so many things to it that when you start small, just start with maybe one format, whether it's point per reception league or super flex, etc. And really learn the format, because the biggest issue people have is they start and they try to do everything at once, and it's not going to be good. So, start small and then look for like these little advantages, like we were talking about Brock Bowers, right? And some leagues are tight end premium. Well, okay, then we need to give bumps to the tight ends that can do well in those formats. And really kind of study and follow, a few people on Twitter or X, whatever you would call it. Ask questions and really study the game. I mean, think of anything in life, and it's Jose, right? That said this.
Jose, yeah.
Yeah. So Jose, think about anything in life, right? The more that you study, the more, like if it's a friend that really needs help, if you really put a lot of time into that friend, you're really going to help them out, and you guys are going to become good friends, right? Versus if you're friends with 30 people, you're probably not going to be a really good friend to anybody. So really just hone in on one thing, and you're going to get better at no matter what it is. And for fantasy, just start small and it'll get better from there.
Be active. Hit the waivers all the time. Try to read up on the news blurbs and try to be ahead of the game. That's really it. So, and if you have any questions, hit up Nick Whalen on Twitter and send us a message over here, and we'll be glad to help.
Yeah.
Let's see. Caleb Williams and Trevor Lawrence were considered generational talents in college. What would be the difference between them, mentioning that Caleb Williams joins a more complete team? So I guess I'll just rephrase this question. What's your stance on Trevor Lawrence right now? I make excuses for him last year because he was so hurt. The O-line wasn't quite there. I'm really vouching for a breakout year this time around. And if I get burned with that take, so be it. I just see a lot of fire from Trevor Lawrence. I know he hasn't quite performed to the level that's expected, but I think his first year in the NFL is really a wash. We can't really throw that one against him. So this would really be year 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. One, I think he was banged up a little last year. But I've always thought he's a little overrated, to be honest with you. He had a very good freshman year at Clemson, and then after that, it didn't really come together for him.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
there were interceptions in that year 3, right? They just started popping up. Yeah, that's true.
And then you're forcing things here and there, and then that followed him to the NFL. Now again, he hasn't been bad in the NFL. He just hasn't been elite, and I think that's probably where he's going to be. He might be that Kirk Cousins like area, and that's okay. Matt Stafford was in that area and he won a Super Bowl once it happened for him and he got surrounded. But I think that's probably where he's going to be. He's going to be probably quarterback 13 to probably 7 or 8 in the NFL.
Couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad, but I think that's probably where he's going to live. I think that sometimes he's overconfident. He stares some things down. He throws some errant passes every once in a while. I think the arm strength isn't quite what we all thought it was going to be. He's not quite the athlete that you need. We talked about being just in the pocket. I think he's kind of stuck there and he gets banged up more. Where the other guys, Caleb, Patrick, you can buy a little time and do different arm angles. He just have that in him, I think, to carry a team, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, that's absolutely fair. He's going to be asking for a contract extension really, really soon. I think he's going to get it because Jacksonville was just coming out of nowhere right before him. I mean, they have to give it to him, but
and the other thing too,
argument,
is Jacksonville's offensive line is just so bad and it's not getting better. It's like, I don't know how he's going to do great. And then they get rid of, Ridley's gone.
Yeah.
Steve Davis is, I like Brian Thomas, but like that's going to take some time. So the stuff around him is not really improving either.
I'm not even a big fan of Travis Etienne. I know he had a bunch of yards, but I don't think the vision is quite there. Better athlete than like between the tackles runner. I think he improved, but he also got banged up. I don't know. It's just might be the same argument as with the Packers. Like, who's a difference maker in the offense, right? It's like, Where is it? It might be Brian Thomas, but I think it's going to be in 2 years.
Yep,
if
probably.
It is at all. Yeah. Well, good evening to everybody and to our 2 analysts. Hello, Charlie. Welcome. Where's your like, everybody? Give us your likes here on the show. El Majazo. Hi, guys. Hello. How's your Spanish? It's not me asking. It's Charlie. It's like, how's your Spanish?
Yeah, it's not very good. I mean, I work in a school, so I have some Spanish students. I make sure I say hello to them. Hola. They say olis. I don't know. I mean, I assume that's
olis. Yeah, that's like hiya. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've expanded to that one. I actually took Chinese first semester in college. So.
Oh, I did too. That sucked.
Yeah, it was not easy, but that was 15 years ago. So yeah, I'm stuck with English. Sorry there.
Yeah, it's okay. Actually, my first semester in college, I took Chinese 1 and I took French 1. I started confusing them. Yeah, no, you wouldn't believe it, but there are some pronunciations that cross over, like the R's. Like you'll say and that's a sort of like a French sound, but in Chinese means hungry. And I don't know, it just started making all of these sort of crazy connections, and I just had to drop off the French and focus on the Chinese for the next year and a half because it was just not going to work. My mind was getting fried.
Well, I can imagine.
Yeah. Don't do French and Chinese on the same season. Yeah. The Raiders are going to compete this year for sure. Charlie, Dak's last year in Dallas to be determined. Nick Whalen thinks he stays. Whenever we have this sort of situation, I do default to the quarterback staying. Like for the most part, like 70% of the time, whenever you have a toss of the coin situation with superstars, more often than not, the player stays. So I mean, if I lack information, that will be my tiebreaker for the most part. If that helps anybody. What about the Browns? Is it fair to have any faith in Deshaun Watson at this point? Because that roster's strong. That defense is quite set. The offense has a bunch of playmakers. I'm not a big fan of Jerry Jeudy, but Amari Cooper did great things. David Njoku broke out.
Yep.
I still want to believe in Nick Chubb. I don't know if he's going to make it back from that horrible knee injury, but fingers crossed, he's done it before. Deshaun Watson,
very good O-line.
And the great O-line too. So I mean, it's sort of a Raider situation with a better defense.
I mean, the problem with, so actually I talked to a buddy about this last weekend at my wedding, is so the problem with Deshaun Watson, we see this with athletes all the time. Tiger Woods, right? Elite, the best. Then this scandal happens, right? Kind of hasn't been the same guy ever since all this stuff happened. It's like he lost kind of his mental edge. And I feel like that's what's happened with Watson with all this stuff. There's been some injuries, just like with Tiger, but I think the mental edge is there and he's overthinking, he's getting beat up, and it's just not the same. Because Deshaun Watson was arguably a top 3 quarterback before all this stuff happened.
Oh, he was top 2 with Patrick Mahomes, no questions asked. I mean, that last season without DeAndre Hopkins, he balled. He was killer.
Yep,
I mean, we had Gruden comparing him to Michael Jordan, and I think that was justified.
Yeah, and so the other problem I have, so I mean, I have some hope with him coming back, but the other part with the Browns is they have a very, very tough strength of schedule this next year. I think they're bottom 3 in the NFL, and I'm one that believes in all that stuff. I know teams will shuffle, but in general, the Vegas makes money every year for a reason. Like they're pretty good with their lines. So if they're bottom 3, I really struggle. I thought I had hope for the Browns early on, but I'm kind of waning a little bit because of that strength of schedule that I think they're probably going to be 8-9 wins, but probably miss out on the playoffs because the AFC is pretty tough.
Yeah, you need 10 or 11 in the AFC at this point. Charlie says, where does Nick see his Bears at the end of the season? Playoffs or no playoffs? Let's
man.
go with playoffs. Let's go with playoffs.
So,
9 wins in the NFC gives you a playoff.
my fandom, I have them at 11 wins. They have a very
Okay.
easy schedule. I mean, they play 4 of the bottom 6 teams in the NFL, and even if they split their division, that's 8 wins, and you already have 8 more games, and you got to win a few more.
Yep. Easy schedule, great team, hopefully great quarterback. Yeah, I'm in. So does that make it Matt Eberflus a candidate for Coach of the Year? Because he's also quite high in the first head coach to be fired sweepstakes. So I mean, it's just really awkward season going in for Eberflus.
I think he's safe for sure. I know people say that, but like I dig way too deep into it. But all the moves that they have made, and plus that defense got really good. And there's some people might not know this. They had to fire the DC and the running backs coach early in the season for like personal reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eberflus took over as DC, and that was about early in the year. In the middle of the year, he finally got it going, and they were a top 5 defense the last half of the season. And so him being a defensive guy, having them top 5, and they just loaded up the offense. He put that together with an easy schedule. I don't see him getting fired. I just don't agree.
Agreed. Not the biggest fan, but agreed. Could the guest say "Go Rudy" just for fun?
Go Rudy.
Go Rudy. Thank you. Yeah. No. So I actually do live shows with other channels, and it's like a truth or false or agree or disagree, right? So he would ask something, I'd say, yeah, I'm for that, or I'm against that, and I explain it, and he replied, no, Rudy, like, well, what are you thinking, right? So just as a sort of self-defense, I said, hey, people can also say "Go Rudy," right? And that's like the banter that we have going on.
I gotcha.
Yeah, we have like "No Rudy" and "Go Rudy" mugs and stuff. So
okay.
Yeah, like
all right, so if I agree with you guys to "Go Rudy," gotcha.
Yeah. So we actually said those in English in the Spanish show. So I mean, I guess it just works. Yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah. Thank you. That's appreciated. What about Xavier Worthy? Is he worth that 108 early pick in dynasty leagues? Ahead of Brian Thomas, ahead of Keon Coleman, ahead of Caleb Williams.
I have Jonathan Brooks to be my 108.
Okay.
You look at
106. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, you look at what Dave Canales did with Rashad White in Tampa Bay. They fed him, and the Panthers with having Miles Sanders, which again didn't do well last year, but also Chuba Hubbard wasn't bad. They traded up on a team that needed a lot of assets. They signed 2 guards to a lot of money in free agency. I think they're going to go downhill. They're going to feed him and take pressure off of Bryce Young. And so whenever Brooks gets back from that knee, we'll see where he's at. I think he's going to be worth that 108. It's tough for me to trust him because look at what the Chiefs have done. They drafted Mecole Hardman, 2nd round, Sky Moore, brought in Tony, signed MVS. They've done all these things and nothing's worked besides Travis Kelce's just the guy. So to me, I think he'll be better maybe NFL player than a fantasy asset.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And he's really slender too. A couple of drop passes. He's already hurt. Yeah, the Chiefs have done this to us a couple of times. Yeah, they're not to be trusted in terms of wide receivers. And he's no Rashee Rice too. That's a completely different style of game. So
we'll
see. So who's going to be Caleb Williams' rival in the NFL? Is it going to be Jordan Love? That become a classic?
I think it would be fun if it was Patrick Mahomes, the 2 guys that were kind of that like, and then when they would always meet, it would be in the Super Bowl. That's my pipe dream. In the NFC, I'll go with the 49ers, man. That's a squad. Purdy. You know, Brock Purdy would be there. I think they're always going to have some people around him. And I mean, there's going to be rivals in the division, but you think of like his career. I see the question like Dak. He's a little older. You know what I mean? Think of like trajectory of the next 10 years.
And he's going to the Raiders. We agreed. So yeah, we can forget about Dak, right?
Man,
I'm not even a Raiders fan. I just want something good for them.
Yeah, that too. I tell you what,
the Steelers. That's the other one.
Are you a Jalen Hurts guy?
Yes. So I do have him in dynasty leagues. I did keep him 2 years ago when everybody was wondering what the hell Jalen Hurts was going to be, like that one MVP season. I do see the limitations as a passer. I do think more lately or recently he hasn't been that motor for the team. He's a very quiet leader, more in the Marcus Mariota sort of mold, and I do think There's a lot of vocal players in the Eagles, and that sort of plays against them. Where Nick Sirianni, I don't think he's the adult in the room. It's normally Jalen Hurts who's trying to like reel him in. I trust his legs. I trust his sort of silent style of leadership, but I'm not quite sure the Philadelphia fandom always responds positively to that sort of more nuanced leadership. He's more of a Justin Herbert than say a Patrick Mahomes or I don't know who else screams a lot. Aaron Rodgers or what have you. So yes, but a little bit more lukewarm this year because I do expect big things from the Eagles. But yeah, I'm very iffy with him. Where do you stand? I mean, he does have his limitations as a passer. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, like his 4 years in the NFL. Here's his quarterback ratings: 77.
No. Okay, that was like one game. That was one game.
Yeah. Okay, 77.6, 87.2, 101.5, 89.1.
There's just one good year. So
and
is that the Carson Wentz effect? Like was that something similar, right? It's like that one year.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he had some injuries, but I think too. I mean, you lost Jason Kelce, and from the film that I've seen, Hurts is already determining where he's going to go with the ball, and then there's easier ones that are open with checkdowns. I mean, how do you not succeed with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, and a good old line? Like you have the things, and it wasn't working. So after he's gotten paid, more and more of his guys are going to be gone. Like you're going to lose. I know those guys resigned, but I think the old line's going to deteriorate. It's going to be interesting to see if he can evolve. And last year he didn't, and so he has to this year. And I mean, if that's handing off to Saquon Barkley, that's going to be less rushing yards for him in fantasy.
Well, he does have a new offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that works. I do like Moore's work in Dallas, and I mean he wasn't that great in the Chargers, but who was really? So yeah, I mean, to me, it's more of a coaching thing than a player thing in Philadelphia. I mean, we would hope Jalen Hurts can transcend every situation, but that's not really who he is.
No, well, I don't dislike the guy. I just right now I'm really having my doubts. We'll have to. This is a big year for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been an overachiever, so he's overcome in Oklahoma.
Yeah. And that takes resiliency, man. Yeah. He overcame getting benched, multiple times. Bama, Oklahoma getting doubted then for the NFL. Like, I mean, I'll give it to him, but I struggle a bit.
You have your questions. That's absolutely fair. My sources, the voices in my head, tell me that Caleb Williams is going to win the Super Bowl in his first year. All right. Okay. We've got very optimistic people on the chat.
Man, I like that guy.
Yeah, for sure. Don't quiet those voices in your head. They're your friend. Who's going to have a better season this year, Jordan Love or C.J. Stroud?
It's tough to doubt C.J. Stroud at this point. I mean, that's the other part too you have to think about is this was Jordan Love's fourth year in the NFL. And so C.J. Stroud as a rookie, you take the biggest jump generally from rookie year to year two. And when you add Stephon Diggs to that group, again, look at the receiver group. Diggs, Collins, Tank Dell, or do you like Watson, Wicks,
the other guys?
Reed. Yeah. It's, I mean, Dalton Schultz, versus Musgrave for you. Like, I'd probably still lean Dalton Schultz. Like, you keep going through the list. Yeah. I just think the weapons and plus the development, how young Stroud is, I think he's got probably a higher ceiling.
Yeah, you give it to the year one quarterback. You just have to. He played way ahead of his years. He looked like an 8 season veteran in the NFL. He's just way ahead of whatever I was suspecting. I had Anthony Richardson as quarterback one last year. So what do I know? But
oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I just really liked him. I guess I just bought the Waltman argument of pocket passer, super athlete, high ceiling. So I was like, yeah, okay.
Matt Waltman?
Yeah, for sure.
I
read him every year. Yeah,
Matt's a good friend. I've met Matt. I got one of my starts I wrote on his RSP.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, like 12 years ago. Yeah.
So I think about the RSP since 2018. I do hear his podcast every once in a while. I know you were with you visited in with somebody like 2 weeks ago. Oh God, who was that? I know I have it here. I'll figure it out just in a little second here. Thanks, Nick. Good advice for the Bears and best wishes, even though he's a Packers fan. I told you they were nice guys.
You too, man.
Marco says, I'm impressed with this live. Very happy to get content like this. What are your expectations with Brandon Ayuk? His contract with the 49ers, all the drama. I guess we could close it off with that. Like, what's going on with the wide receivers? We've got Brandon Ayuk asking for a deal, CeeDee Lamb with the Cowboys asking for a deal, Justin Jefferson with the Vikings, and then T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are not even training with the Bengals at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame people, because if you get an injury, it's going to cost you millions of dollars, and that's, it's their families, it's their life. And the thing that people forget is, I know first round picks, you get paid, as for the rookie contract, but those second, third round guys, like, it's a good living. Don't get me wrong, but you have everyone coming to you, your family, everyone. Oh, hey, now you can pay me, your friends, etc. And it struggles, with some of it. So them getting this big contract, I think, is actually really big. Their second one. I think Ayuk is a top 8 receiver in the NFL rather easily. I mean, fantastic route runner. He has developed, got out of that doghouse that Shanahan had him early in his career. Good after the reception. He's the best receiver on that entire team. And you look at that team, Kittle's getting older, although I love him. He's getting older. Debo really didn't separate in that Super Bowl. Now it's the issue is they really just could hone in on Ayuk, and Debo couldn't win on one-on-one coverage. And they might, I think, release him and then sign Ayuk. Ayuk should get, I would say, 28, 6, 27 at least. Yeah, maybe 28. Justin Jefferson should, I think, probably 32, 33. Chase, I mean, they're all waiting. Ooh, whoever goes, right, even try and top. I mean, Lamb.
Who jumps the gun? Yeah.
Yep, Chase, etc. I am surprised the Bengals aren't signing Higgins yet, though. That's interesting to me.
I mean, it's been going on for 2 years. Rumor has it they haven't even offered $20 million a year. So I mean, Higgins is very insulted at this point. I think it's miserable. I think he's a great number 2. I don't think he's a number 1. But I think many teams would be very happy to pay him as such. I'm thinking Panthers. I'm thinking Patriots. I'm thinking maybe even Washington. The Chargers might be open to that idea. I mean, there's just a bunch of teams that would love to have that big receiver, fast receiver, productive receiver. Just a nice guy. Like you can even see him on his pictures. He's got this baby face, the massive 6'3" frame, but he looks like so friendly, if you will.
I mean, I think he's underrated as a route runner too. I mean, I just think he's a guy that you love to have. If that's a team's first option, a lot of them, and if having him as your second would just be, you're getting spoiled. So yeah, I think they need to
trade him. I mean, they're not going to pay him, so they might as well just trade him. Yeah, I think that's it.
I mean,
it's just a matter of if T. Higgins is going to be pressuring into week 1 or not. I think that's really it. Sadly, because the Bengals are really stingy. They've always been, and doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. Quick predictions for the Saints. I have them at 7 wins at best. I'm just not feeling anything there.
Yeah, it's tough because they're always trying to reload with that contract stuff. I mean, this is offensive based. I mean, I love Olave a lot. I think that they kind of got Juwan Johnson is a decent tight end that's a little underrated. They got some pieces here and there, but to me, I think this is going to be where they fall off a little bit more than they did last year. They're going to have to probably blow it up. I'm sorry to tell you but that's what I'm thinking right now.
I mean, they were almost under, what was it, like $100 million over the cap before all the crazy restructures and such. So yeah,
and it stinks because I love Cam Jordan, I love Olave and some of those pieces, but it's been sad to see Marcus Williams just go. Like he's such a great safety. They just let him go because of contracts. Like they really need to reset that thing so they can keep that young talent in New Orleans.
Right, 2017 draft is a long way back. It didn't work.
Man.
It's time to blow
it up. Draft though.
It was insane. Insane. What was that? Michael Thomas and Kamara and
oh, it's so sad what happened to Michael Thomas. He was so amazing.
I traded I traded Kyler Murray in a super flex 2 or 3 years ago for Michael Thomas. Then all the injuries hit, and it was right after the extension. He just blew up in my face in the most miserable way. It's probably the worst trade I've ever done.
I mean, in a sad way, I know people don't think of it this way, but I'm glad that players get paid because those injuries do happen, and they for the rest of their life. And this is what they have. It's like, what do they do for the next 40, 50 years? So I'm glad they get paid. I know teams, or fans don't like that. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? But like, in terms
I don't care about them. No, go get your money.
Yeah,
go get your money. It's your job. It's your livelihood. It's generational wealth. We actually had a big argument about that in the morning, and that was basically my argument. Like the owners don't need us cheering for them. They make enough money.
Yep.
We cheer for the players. If they can get their money, they can hold out, they can hold in, they can do whatever they want. Let's just be patient. Let's be emphatic and sympathetic with their cost, because ultimately they've earned it. If the team doesn't want to pay him, somebody else will, and that's really where we stand as a channel. So I'm glad you share that view.
Yeah.
Last 2 questions. Jorge, Nick, thank you for your time. What do you think about Dalton Kincaid and Keon Coleman in the Buffalo Bills? Will they help Josh Allen take the next step, or not quite? And I would throw in Khalil Shakir, who I sneakily like.
I'm glad you did, because I was going to.
Good.
So I'm a huge Josh Allen fan. I love them out of Wyoming. Again, kind of what you were talking about. I'd rather hone a guy in, right, versus ask them to do a little bit more, which is kind of the Bo Nix. Bo Nix needs to do a little bit more, and you want to hone in Drake Maye. So I love Josh Allen, but also I love Dalton Kincaid coming out of Utah. I love Keon Coleman. I already have him on some of my teams. I had him as a Devy pick. So Devy's when you can draft college guys and you hold them. So I liked him for a while. I like Shakir. So I see what they're doing there. It's going to be a little bit more of a ball control offense. They're going to utilize, the running game with James Cook. I think they're still going to utilize Josh Allen as a runner. My biggest fear, knock on wood, is, I'm hoping Josh Allen just doesn't get injured as much as they use him running. And I know he's such a big man, because that would just be devastating. But I think they can make it work. They're retooling this, and instead of honing all of their targets to one guy, they can spread it out and take kind of that Green Bay approach. And then teams don't know where you're hitting. Now you can take advantage of matchups and defensive leverage, and who's bracketed, and then you look elsewhere. My biggest issue with that offense right now is who's going to be kind of taking the top off the defense, because Shakir's not a fast guy. Dalton Kincaid tight ends don't take the top off. Keon Coleman isn't super fast. Like, they need someone that can go deep, and they don't have that right now. So
Gabriel Davis role.
Yep.
And I mean, he's not even that quick. He's just fast. I call him a diesel player because it just takes him forever to reach top speed. But once he gets it, like, he's useful. He'll just go in a straight line for the most part. But in the scheme and in that offense, that's all Josh Allen normally needs, right? We can go back to that 4 touchdown game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. I sold him everywhere. Like, I saw that, I'm like, yeah, this is the time. This is the place. I'm selling. Like, give me those seconds. Give me those early firsts. Like, and it worked. And I'm very thankful to Gabe Davis for that. But yeah, I didn't buy.
No, that's why people need to follow you, man.
Hopefully. I mean, I do get my misses, but that was not one of them.
That's a good one.
Finally, let's go to the Tennessee Titans. So you're not a big Will Levis fan. I can tell. What about the coaching staff?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not a big fan. It's just when you could take a different quarterback or McCarthy at 7 and you don't, it says that they have faith in him. I just would have taken a different quarterback. Levis, to me, just takes too many chances, and he gets a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks, which is just what the NFL isn't right now. When you take negative plays, you really struggle to convert and get points on that drive, whether it's obviously an interception you won't, but sacks too. It's tough to get points on that drive. And so it's a points driven league, right? And the Titans are interesting to me with this new staff. In my mind, I was like, okay, they'll rebuild, they'll reset, whatever. They got older. They traded for L'Jarius Sneed. They bring in Ridley. They already had Hopkins. They signed Tony Pollard. I'm like, man, they were getting old on that offense.
They're all in.
But I will give them this. The one thing that you need to do with the young quarterback, we learned about this with Mac Jones, with Justin Fields, etc. You have to surround them. And they surrounded him with guys that have done it, right? Pollard has done it, even though last year wasn't great. Hopkins, Ridley have done it. They brought in, so Brian Callahan is bringing in his dad.
Yeah.
The best O-line coach in the NFL to help with Latham, which, by the way, J.C. Latham, I coached against him in high school.
Really?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, it wasn't. We didn't win.
How'd that go? Yeah.
We didn't win. He was 6'6", 280 as a freshman, and he was like Julius Peppers at the end. It was bad. Like, they got him, and you got Peter Stronsky right from last year. So like they got some talent up there. To me, he just has to own it back and just use your weapons. We talked about Caleb. Oh, I'm just going to trust Hopkins and Ridley and whatever, instead of having to make all these plays, which I think is kind of where he's at. So we'll see.
Excellent. Well, Nick, it's been an hour and 24 minutes, almost 25. We went a little bit over the time quota, but I'm really thankful. People are loving it. Jorge asked like 7 questions, and he's giving you another thank you round.
You got it, Jorge.
Yeah, already learning a lot from you. So where can people follow you?
Yeah, on Twitter or X @_ Nick Whalen, and yeah, feel free to ask me, man. I'd like to help people out if I can.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for watching this show in English, the first one we've done officially in this version in this channel. My name's Rudy Jacinto, and